Hi guys, some of you guys have been requesting that I do some sort of vlog, so here we go. Um, I haven't seen Suicide Squad yet, so I can't really talk about it. So I'll talk about just myself and the stuff I enjoy. But let's go to Central City first. Essentially, I've been reading comics since I was a wee lad, essentially before I could even know how to read. I was looking at them pretty pictures, and holy crap, did that look exciting! So I've been a fan of comics pretty much my whole life, and I've been a fan of superheroes as well. Uh, can't explain why. Probably the power fantasy aspect is what really draws me to those. But I guess I really started collecting, like essentially as a kid, like everyone, I had a handful of comics or two. And it's probably just around the age of 10 that I really started to actually collect comics that I would consider myself a collector. And as a kid, I was reading. Essentially, I was pretty much only reading Marvel comics. It's not because I didn't like DC Comics. It's because essentially I was reading reprint translation of Marvel Comics, and that's what we had in my neck of the woods at the time. I'm not sure why they weren't reprinting that many DC Comics. I guess Marvel was the most popular at the time or something. And also, those comics were in black and white. So it's only like a few years later that I started reading actual color comics. So for a long time, I really enjoyed the black and white artwork. And in retrospect, it's about as close to seeing the original artwork as we could at the time. And holy crap, was it good! Also, the print quality was a bit better than the American version of the comics. The paper stock was much thicker and of much better quality. So the overall quality of the comic was much improved. First by being black and white, and by being printed on much better paper. But at some point, they started reprinting a few DC comics, and I still remember when I first discovered the Flash. Holy crap, was that awesome! Again, it was reprint, so even though it was comics from like 15, 20 years before, it was still it stood the test of time really well at the time. It was the early Flash stories by Carmine Infantino and Murphy Anderson and Gardner Fox. And I think there's Joe Kubert also winged a handful of issues. It's been a long time, so I could be mistaken. And holy crap, were those good! Essentially, for a bit, the Flash was pretty much my favorite character because of that. And then a bit later, I discovered Daredevil. Holy crap, did I enjoy Daredevil as well. Again, it was reprint, and it was comics from like 15 years before. So it was the Wallace Wood comics, the era when Wallace Wood was doing the book. That's how I discovered Daredevil. And a bit later, John Romita took over the art duty, and he was then followed by Gene Colan. And holy crap, it was a great era for Daredevil. So essentially, while most people my age were reading the Frank Miller comics, I was actually reading the Wallace Wood and the John Romita comics. It was a great time to be reading comics at the time. But at some point, sadly, the reprint were discontinued. Essentially, they tried to switch to printing comics in colors for a reason that I don't quite understand. And after a while, it pretty much killed the whole line of comics. Also, we did have a few other comics from Europe that were imported here. So we had a few DC comics like Batman and Superman, but these were pretty much the some of the only comics we had from DC. But then at some point, as I mentioned, we started seeing reprints of The Flash, of Wonder Woman, Karate Kid. Holy crap, I enjoyed Karate Kid, and eventually we got the new Teen Titans. Holy crap, was that good! Essentially, they started the new Teen Titans pretty much at the time when they started doing comics in colors. Well, reprinting comics in colors, and we also got the Legion of Superheroes with the Great Darkness Saga. Essentially, before that, we did have color comics once in a while, either in terms of comics imported from Europe. So there was this Batman and Superman series from Europe that would be imported over here, and that's how I discovered the awesome Jim Aparo. Holy crap, did I enjoy his Batman! His Batman was really awesome. Ironically, for a long time, I only had a handful of issues drawn by Jim Aparo. Most of the Batman comics I had were either by Neil Adams or there's this other guy, Irv Norvik. Holy crap, did I enjoy his Batman comics. I remember a Batman Shadow crossover. There was like 2 issues of that, and holy crap, was that good. Those comics left a huge impression on me. And then at some point, uh, they pretty much stopped reprinting comics, translations of comics over here. Although a bit before that, I had started to buy the American version of certain comics. Essentially, whatever comics were not translated, because not all the comics were translated. There's a whole bunch of stuff that, like Secret Wars or West Coast Avengers, that were never translated for some reasons. Probably because they were a miniseries or too recent. There was also a gap. Like essentially, we would get translation. Usually, translation comics would be about 6 months after the original American version. But there were a few exceptions. For some reasons, Avengers was like 5 years behind the actual American series. The same with the X Men. The X Men were again at least 5 years behind their American counterpart. But most other series like the Fantastic Four, Spider-Man, Captain America, the Hulk, those were about 6 months behind. And many series like Secret Wars, West Coast Avengers, those were never translated, at least not at the time. So I started reading. Essentially, I started reading the American versions of whatever comics that we did get a translation of. And that's pretty much one of the things that taught me English. Essentially, reading them comics helped me pick up a lot of vocabularies. But also, there were various TV shows that helped a lot. When I was in high school, we had TV shows like the Transformers, GI Joe, and a bunch of others like that. And so essentially, as I would come back from school from around 3:30, 4 o'clock, I would start reading. I would start watching them TV shows like Transformers, GI Joe, and whatever other cartoon were playing at the time. So from like 3:34 to 6, I would watch those shows for. I would watch about 2 3 hours of English TV every day, and that also greatly contributed to my learning the language of the English. Of course, I still have a pretty thick accent. Sometimes I won't speak it for months. So that's pretty much one of the reasons. So then I started reading the American version of a lot of comics, and when the translated comics were discontinued, then I switched to the American version 100%, and life was good. I was looking forward to at some point comics were published on were first sold on Wednesday, So I was looking forward to Wednesday every week to go to the local comic shop and get my new fix of comics. And then through the years, the day changed. But overall, I was for a long time, I was always looking forward to new comic day. And then around the late the late 80s, we got the Batman by Tim Burton. Holy crap, was that a game changer? It was a game changer in movies, but also in comics. It pretty much influenced that amongst the Dark Knight Returns by Frank Miller and Batman Year One. That pretty much changed the face of Batman from there on. And also, I've been playing games for quite a while. Like often people will ask me if what other games I played other than in this universe online. Well, eons ago, like many kids, we would play in whatever games there was at the arcade, like games like Mario or Street Fighter or that kind of stuff. Galaga, I have fond memories of Galaga. But then at some point, it became pretty much repetitive. Like essentially, once you had played one fighter game, you pretty much had played them all. It was pretty much the same formula over and over. The same with side scrollers like Mario. So if you once you had mastered the Super Mario, pretty much any other game was more or less more of the same. Or sometimes it was a lesser version of the same, which wasn't very compelling, I guess. So for quite a while, I pretty much stopped playing games. I started again once I got around the time of Genesis. There was this game Sonic the Hedgehog. Uh, Essentially, I bought a Genesis to my mom at the time, and we had a lot of fun with some of the games. Sorry, I'm trying to look for the bounties at the same time. And also, I was playing games like D&D at the time, when I was a kid. We started playing sometimes in high school. Although before D&D, there was these. Maybe you guys didn't know that there was these novels called Find Your Fate or something like that, where essentially you would decide what would happen or how you would read the novel. So at the end of each chapters, sometimes you would get or at the end of a paragraph, sometimes you would get some choices. So you would read a paragraph and it would say, okay, if you want to open the door, go to page 55. If you want to open the window, go to page 53. If you don't want to open anything, go to page 23. So you would go from pages to pages like that, depending on the choices you would make. I guess that was the first taste I got to role playing game, short of playing in the backyard with my friends, I suppose. And then at some point we discovered D&D, and D, and holy crap, did we have a lot of fun playing that. We started with D&D, and then it became advanced D&D. They pretty much revamped the rules. Oh, I hear something. And then I discovered the live role-playing game. Essentially, that D&D gave way to live role-playing game at some point. Uh, for those who don't know, what you do is that you put on a costume, you go into the woods, and you play out your character in real life, as opposed to playing with pen and paper around a table. You actually play your characters. You have various stats for your character, and you just play it. And that was a really fun experience. but it was a little too demanding. So I played that kind of stuff for about 5 years. Well, I did more than play. We had our own live role playing game, my friend and I. And it was pretty awesome, but it was very demanding. So after 5 years, we had to let it go. But then we discovered Magic the Gathering. Holy crap! Were we hooked on that for a while? We would gather a group of friends, let's on Friday and Friday nights, and we would play through the whole weekend until Sunday. We had a lot of fun with that game. But at some point, it became harder and harder to find. The good thing about Magic the Gathering, unlike D&D, with D&D, it was getting harder at some point to find a group of players because you need to play also regularly. It's an ongoing adventure, so you need to set some times aside every week in order to be able to play and continue your adventure. But at some point, it became harder and harder to get a group of four, five, six people at the same time every week to play our adventure. But the nice thing about the Magic the Gathering is that uh, it didn't really matter if it was the same people every week. Like once a week, we would again gather at someone's place and we would play Magic. But unlike D&D, if someone was missing, it wasn't a big issue. We could still play as long as there was at least four of us. We could easily play a various variation of the game. But if we played D&D and someone was missing, then the game master or the dungeon master had to play instead of that player. And by the time the player would come back the next week, then we had to fill him on whatever his character had done and whatever he had missed. But then sometimes someone else would be missing. So pretty much every week we would end up with one, two, three players missing, and it became a mess pretty quick. As opposed to with Magic, if someone was missing, it didn't really matter because each match was its own thing. So you didn't need to catch up on all the previous matches. You took out your deck, played the one match that we were playing, and that was it. That it wasn't that. It was a lot more simple to either gather people to play, or even if people didn't play regularly, that wasn't an issue either. As long as we had a handful of people every week, it didn't have to be the same people. So it was a really it was a nice thing. Also, there was this place called the Dog, where we could go on Thursday nights to trade cards. Essentially, guys would gather there with their collections, and then we could trade amongst Magic players. And then we would go to this pizza place after that, and we would play until like 3 a.m. And it was pretty cool. And then Magic the Gathering made way for Baldur's Gate. Holy crap! Did I have a lot of fun playing that game? Because again, with Magic the Gathering, you still needed at least three, four people to be able to play. You could play one on one, but it became old pretty quick. Essentially, whoever if you play like one on one, whoever had the better deck would or who was the better player would pretty much always win. We could try to switch decks to try to spice things up, but it one versus one wasn't as fun as when there was like four of us or six of us. With four of us, we would play matches two versus two, and with six of us, we would play three versus three. And there was this format called Emperor that we would use. That was a lot of fun to use. Essentially, at the end of each table, there was the Emperor, and next to him, there was these two guards. I guess we could call them. So before, in order to be able to reach the Emperor, you had to go through one of the guards before you could actually attack the Emperor. But then again, even though it was simpler to gather people than with D&D, we still had to gather people. So at some point, it became a bit more difficult. Again, either people were working or had to spend time with family or things like that. So finding players became a bit more challenging. But then Baldur's Gate happened, and holy crap, that pretty much replaced Magic the Gathering at the time. Oh, our friend
Leave some of the
Nightwing.
bad guys for me, will ya?
I guess Boomer doesn't want to be found. So essentially, I played Baldur's Gate. Holy crap, I played that game a little too much. It was really fun, and it was if you took the time to explore and to do a lot of side quests. Holy crap, you could play that game for 200 hours. And even more if you decided to try different groups. Like I would play with a rogue, and I would try gather a certain amount of a certain group of NPCs. Because essentially, in Baldur's Gate, you create your one character, and then you gather NPCs to form a party. And there was about, I don't know, a dozen NPCs you could choose from, and depending on the combination of NPCs you had, it would make things a bit different in game. Some NPCs would have a few dialogues between them. So trying the different combination of NPCs you could have, that that could require quite a few gameplay. Although the first time I played Baldur's Gate, I had played Diablo 2 before, and in Diablo 2 you only controlled your one character, and there was an NPC that would follow you around that you didn't need to control at all. And I was kind of used to that. I was real pretty new to the the realm of computer games, I guess. So controlling a whole party was challenging to say the least. Also, I didn't understand quite how the AI actually worked and all that stuff. So I had a hard time playing the whole party, and keeping. I had a hard time keeping them alive. So what I would do is that I would at some point my NPCs kept on dying, so I would go to the temple to resurrect them. And at some point I was broke. I had to bring them back so much that I had no more money to do so. So I got a little impatient, and I decided I killed them all, and I continued solo with my character. I had created a mage thief. Ideally, I would have created only a thief. I love playing the thief in D&D, or what is now called the rogues, I guess. And in D&D normally a thief could use certain magical items or certain scrolls and things like that. Sadly, in Baldur's Gate, we didn't have that ability. The thief could not. Well, he could in Baldur's Gate 2, but in Baldur's Gate 1, the thief could not really use scrolls or magic abilities or magic items. So what I ended up doing is that instead of creating a thief like I wanted to, I created a mage thief. So it allowed me to essentially be a thief, sneak around, backstab NPCs, but also it gave me some magical abilities. It was a great decision and a poor decision at the same time. Oh, let's help our old friend here.
I guess you're right. I could buy a new
Because
horse.
essentially the mage thief has the worst Thaco ever. Thaco is a 2-hit armor class of 0. So essentially, is 2-hit was awful. So trying to hit an enemy was challenging to say the least. But I could make up with various abilities. I could if I couldn't do damage with weapons for reasons because the armor class of the NPCs were too strong. I could always hit them with magic. And seeing how I was broke to raise my fallen comrades, at some point I gave up on gathering a party, and I decided to continue solo with my mage thief. And I remember at the time people were calling me crazy. They were calling me crazy also in Diablo 2 when I was playing with a necromancer, but I'll explain that a bit in a bit. So essentially, I played Baldur's Gate solo with my little mage thief, and it was challenging because essentially the game is designed around the whole party. You're supposed to have six characters, and so I was trying to do that with my one character, and it was really tough at first. But at some point, since I had only one characters, any experience point I was gaining, I didn't have to split it amongst six characters. So my one character went up in level pretty quick. So once I was a higher level, it became a lot easier. And of course, once I started having powerful spells, it became much easier. And when I discovered there were various wands also that you could use, and there was a wand of monster summoning. Holy crap, was that? Well, it was a pretty powerful wand. So there's a few items that once I got them, and once my character was a little stronger, it made a huge difference. I guess we're not going to be doing. So essentially, I played Baldur's Gate 1 with my solo mage thief, and it was a lot of fun. And then later on, when I played Baldur's Gate 2, I was tempted to play with a party in Baldur's Gate 2, and I quickly decided against it. And I essentially it started pretty much a tradition of playing solo. At least the first game through, I would play solo with my character, and then after that, the next time I would play it, then I would form a group. And after a while, with time, I would essentially play with a lot of different groups to try out the different NPC combinations. And by the end of Baldur's Gate 2, well, not just Baldur's Gate 2, but there was Baldur's Gate 2 and there was Baldur's Gate Throne of Baal, which was an expansion of yeah, it was an expansion on Baldur's Gate 2. And by the time you reached the end of Throne of Baal, holy crap, you had been playing your character. You could have been playing your characters for like 500 hours if you took the time to explore and do most of the missions. So when you reach the end of Baldur's Gate 2, Throne of Baal, you were a bit misty-eyed. And of course, then I played all the what was called the Infinity Engine games. There was a bunch of games that were essentially made with the Infinity Engine. Sorry, I'm a bit focused on defeating the Piper. Ah, there we go.
Always a chance for an encore.
So essentially, there was this engine known as the Infinity Engine, and there were a bunch of games that were made thanks to it. Baldur's Gate 1 was one of those. There was here. Oh, there it is. There was also Icewind Dale, which pretty much was the same principle as Baldur's Gate. It was in the Forgotten Realms of Dungeons and Dragons. But unlike Baldur's Gate, you didn't create only one character. You created the whole group. So instead of creating one character and gathering NPCs to fill your group, you would create six characters from the start. So you didn't have NPC interactions between the characters since you were all the NPCs. And that game I loved playing that game as well.
I should have gone with the fake vomit game.
It was a bit different from Baldur's Gate. It wasn't as open-ended because Baldur's Gate you could pretty much explore. You had more or less an open world that you could explore. Baldur's Gate, Icewind Dale was a lot more linear. You didn't have. It was what you could call a dungeon crawl. So you had various missions. You would go into dungeons, but it was pretty linear. You didn't have much exploration like you did with Baldur's Gate, but it was still a really fun game. And then I discovered Planescape Torment. Holy crap, did I enjoy that game! Again, by the end of the game, had the strong part of Planescape Torment was the story and the characters and the music. The music was pretty awesome as well. And by the time you reach the end of the game, holy crap! Again, I was a bit misty-eyed. It was a really great experience. And of course, then there was Fallout 1 and 2. Holy crap! Again, these were games that you had more or less an open world that you could explore, and it was all kinds of awesome. I know that a lot of players are familiar with Fallout thanks to Fallout 3, which is very different from Fallout 1 and 2. Essentially, Fallout 3 is done like a shooter. Fallout 1 and 2 was an isometric game, so the feel was very different. But the strong part of Fallout was the story, the characters, the dialogues, the ideas. There was a lot of great ideas in that game. So holy crap, was it good? And essentially, what led me to start playing computer games because for a long time I didn't have. I wasn't playing games for at least a decade in terms of video games. Like I'd played games in arcades, I'd played a bit on a few consoles, but then I was like, I don't know, 10 years easily without playing any kind of computer games or console games. And but essentially at some point I decided to buy a laptop. Uh, Not sure how to properly explain it. Essentially, I work in animation, and sometimes we would work long hours. And when you work 40, 50, 60 hours a week, you don't do much of anything else. So if you want to do anything like watch
This
movies
is
or
Commissioner Gordon to all units. The hitman called Deathstroke the Terminator has been sighted in Gotham. If you know his reputation, you know he always fulfills his contract. He has enhanced reflexes, skills with many different weapon types, and a deadly aim. Do not attempt to apprehend. Contact the Special Crimes Unit immediately for backup. Repeat. Upon sight, report immediately to the SCU. Gordon out.
so when you work so much, essentially if you want to do things like watch movies, there's little choice. You have to do it while you work. So you pretty much learn to multitask. But at least at first, for quite a while, I was doing what many of us did in animation. I bought a Discman. At the time, we had the Discman to play CDs, music CDs, and for well, at least a year or two, I my Discman was playing nonstop while I was working. So I listened to a lot of music, and mostly I would listen to movie soundtracks. And holy crap, did I listen to a lot of those. I have like 300 CDs of movie soundtracks. I really enjoyed those. And some were really helpful in helping focus on work, if it makes any sense. Like sometimes if you had to draw an action, certain scenes with a certain mood, having an action music playing in the background really helped. Or sometimes you needed to draw more quiet scenes, some more quiet music It could be useful as well. So essentially, I was always connected to listening to music because again, working a lot, you didn't spend much time doing anything else. So it made up for that by being able to listen to music while working. And then at some point, I purchased a DVD player. Yeah, I know I said a PC, a laptop earlier. Yeah, you'll see where I'm going. At some point, I purchased a DVD player, and that was a game changer. It really changed my life at the time for reasons. And then I decided that I should purchase there were portable DVD players at the time. So I thought my Discman essentially was dying on me, so I had to replace my Discman. But then I started thinking instead of buying a new Discman, why not buy a portable DVD player? That way I could continue to listen to music at work and I could watch movies if I wanted to. So I looked around for a portable DVD player and holy crap, they were pretty expensive. And for a little more money, I could purchase a laptop instead. And people kept on telling me, don't spend. I think it was $1,000 at the time. Don't spend $1,000 for a portable DVD player. Spend I don't know $2,000 to buy a laptop instead. It will play DVD players. It will play DVDs, and it will do a lot of other things. And it did make some sort of sense. So I did. So I decided to purchase a laptop, which also again was that was another game changer. And holy crap, I would carry that thing around everywhere. And again, at work, I would always be hooked on a film or sometimes a music. Although I went through some sort of transition with my laptop. As much as I was listening to music at work, as soon as I got the laptop, uh, then I started watching movies more and more instead of and listening to music less and less. In short, when the choice came to do I want to listen to the music of the Batman film, or do I want to watch the Batman film? More often than not, I would opt to watch the film. Although once in a while, I would just want to listen to the music for reasons. So I started watching films more and more as I was working, which led me to then playing games. I have a friend who gave me a copy of Diablo 2 because again, I never thought to buy a laptop for games. I essentially bought it for to be able to continue to listen to to CDs at work and also to be able to watch movies. But what I never thought of was you can play games also on a laptop. Although my laptop wasn't very powerful, essentially the graphic card was pretty atrocious. But it was my first computer. I knew nothing about computers. Essentially, I had to depend on other people to suggest to me what to buy, and they didn't give me a bad suggestion, but it could have been better. And so with Diablo 2, that's how I discovered PC gaming. And on Diablo 2, holy crap, I discovered the Necromancer class. And holy crap, did I enjoy playing that character. And I became essentially a summoner. I would summon a small army of skeletons. And that essentially all my abilities went into that. And at the time, people were calling me crazy. They said, no, you cannot just put skill points in skeletons. You have to put points in there were other abilities that they were suggesting. They were saying that with my skeleton army, there's no way I would be able to play the game, and let alone defeat the evil Diablo at the end. And I proved them wrong because they didn't factor in the fact that if you put all your points into your skeletons become so strong that they're pretty much as strong or stronger sometimes than the actual NPCs you're fighting, and you can summon a small army of them. And also another argument was that essentially to be able to summon skeletons, you needed dead NPCs. So essentially you have to kill an enemy, and then when the enemy dies, then you can raise a skeleton. So you need bodies to be able to cast skeletons. And the argument was that I would run out of bodies in certain maps. And the reason why people thought that is that there are other abilities in Diablo 2 with the Necromancer where essentially you can turn dead bodies into bombs. So people would use that. They would make dead bodies explode to do damage to the evil enemies, and then they would have no more bodies to raise the skeletons. As I wasn't doing that, all I was doing was summoning skeletons, and also was using a bow, unlike pretty much everyone else. Everyone was creating a necromancer with a huge armor and a shield and like this little wand that acted like a mace to fight in melee. I wasn't doing that. I was using a light armor. I was using a bow. So essentially, I would summon an army of skeleton, and I would support them with my bow from a distance. And as soon as a skeleton would die, I would raise a new one with one of the fallen enemies, with one of the bodies on the ground, and it worked really well. And then when I started showing that to people, they were telling me, oh well, once you reach Diablo, you're never going to be able to defeat him because your skeletons will die and blah blah blah. Because Diablo essentially has this huge ring of fire that he casts around himself, which technically destroys all the the skeletons. But what they didn't factor in is that my skeletons were so strong that they could survive the ring of fire from Diablo. Sometimes he would kill one or two of them as he would use his ring of fire, but essentially my skeletons would be able to last through most of the fight, and I would of course be backing them up with my Uber bow at the time, because again I would unlike most players would put a lot of points in strength in order to be able to carry the biggest armor. But I did something different. I didn't have. I only had as much strength as I really needed to. But the one stat that I would boost a lot was dexterity. Essentially, my necromancer had super mega high dexterity, which would give him a better armor, a dexterity affected armor, and also it affected his attack with a bow. So when I reached Diablo, yeah, some of my skeletons died, but by the end of the fight, I had about half or one third of my skeleton still standing. Because again, they were so strong. I had put essentially every points I had in skeletons, so they could survive even versus Diablo, at least for quite a bit. And then there was what was the expansion? I forget the name. Anyway, there was an expansion in for Diablo with something with Baal. I have a Throne of Baal in mind, but that's not it. It was weird because we had Diablo 2, which had an expansion with Baal, and we had the Throne of Baal with Baldur's Gate 2. So it was either a weird coincidence or someone was looking at someone else's homework. Anyway, so again, the argument became the same, like, oh, once you reach Baal, your skeletons will die, and again, they were so strong that it wasn't an issue. So essentially, I discovered PC gaming because of Diablo 2, and then with Baldur's Gate, that's when I really started liking PC gaming. And then after Baldur's Gate, I was looking for the next Baldur's Gate. I spent a lot of time looking for the next Baldur's Gate, and I tried a whole bunch of games. I tried a game called Arcanum, which was more or less in the spirit of Baldur's Gate, but it had a lot of flaws. They tried to have this time-based system and this real-time system, and it didn't work real well. And of course, also there was essentially the game was unplayable if you didn't have the day one patch. So you once you got it, you had to patch it first, and then you could play the thing. But it was poorly balanced and poorly tested. the The idea was great, and the story was a lot of fun. But it was pretty flawed game. So as fun as it was, it was not the next Baldur's Gate, sadly. Then I tried Pool of Radiance 2 Returns to Myth Draenor. Holy crap, that game was garbage. Although it was a great tool, essentially it taught me how to bypass bugs, how to fix bugs, and stuff like that. Because that game was riddled with a whole truckload of bugs and issues. The first issue was that just installing it, you could not install it on your C disk. Um, oh no, that's not true. Sorry, you had to install it on your C disk. At the time, gamers like myself would essentially split their hard drive into various disks. Like you would have your C disk for Windows, and then you would have for your D disk for let's say games, and you could make, let's say, an E disk for let's say movies. So essentially, my games were on the D disk. But with Pool of Radiance, they were forcing you to install on the C disk, and I didn't have enough room on the C disk. On the C disk, I only had enough room for Windows and maybe one or two other things. So I had to do what many others did. I had to essentially hack the game. I had to crack the game to be able to play it. And also the game had a truckload of bugs. Some games some files, like sometimes the game would crash and it would corrupt not just the save that you not just your latest save, but sometimes it would corrupt two or three saves. So you had to get into the habit of making, I don't know, a dozen saves, and when the game would crash, you would have to delete the save that crashed and the one two previous save also, just to be sure. So that was a bit annoying. And of course, there were quite a few bugs that at some point you even had to go into your files and into you had to go edit sometimes the what was called the ini file. So it was an awful game, but it was a great game to learn how to troubleshoot a buggy game. So it was a real educational. And then there was other games like the Temple of Elemental Evil, which again was a Dungeon and Dragon games as well. And it wasn't a bad game, but you could see that they had a lot of problems. Uh, Although supposedly at some point they changed the rating at the last minute, so they had to delete a whole bunch of stuff from the game at the last minute and try to rearrange it so that it would actually work. But it created a truckload of bug. So essentially there was a town with a what would you call that, a whorehouse. And for some reason, at some point, they decided to change the rating of the game, and they decided to get rid of the whorehouse and a few other things like that. So they did a lot of last minute changes, and it was pretty major changes. So they scrambled to try to fix it as best as they could. But in the end, the game was a little broken when it was first released. But it was a really fun game though, and the combat was the highlight of the game. Essentially, it was turn-based, and it followed exactly the D&D rules, or at least as exactly as a computer game can. So holy crap, it was like playing D&D, but on the computer. A lot more than it was with like Baldur's Gate was like playing D&D, but they were taking liberties because pretty much everything happens in real time. Sure, you can pause whenever you need to take some actions, but in the case of Temple of Elemental Evil, it was literally turn-based. It was literally the same thing as a D&D game. All you were missing was the dungeon master, and technically I guess the computer was the dungeon master. So the mechanic was awesome. The way you could play with the game and place your characters, and then there were things like there's something known as the attack of opportunity in the D&D, or there was at the time, and it was a bit broken the way it worked. But if you gave one of your characters a really long spear, holy crap, you could, and there were a few feats also that would give you extra attacks of opportunity. Holy crap, sometimes you would see your fighter, if you gave a long spear to your fighter, then you would, as soon as an enemy would try to do an action, the fighter would have an attack of opportunity, and then it would give him an extra attack of opportunity against another target, and then the target would die, which would give him another attack of opportunity against another target. And holy crap, sometimes you would see your fighter going whoo, 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 hitting like 3 dozen targets in the same round because of his attack of opportunity. So it was a little too powerful. But it showed that the something we knew for a long time, for those who were playing on paper, is that the attack of opportunity was a pretty broken mechanic and pretty messed up. And imagine if you gave a long spear to two of your fighters, to three of your fighters, to four of your fighters. Holy crap, you could clear a whole room of enemies very quickly. So despite all its flaws, it still was a fun game, but it was a pretty flawed and broken game. And after that, there were a few other games like Neverwinter Nights, but Neverwinter Nights was a bit disappointing. Essentially, they wanted only to make essentially a tool set so that people could make their own adventures, and they weren't planning to make a campaign. But then when they realized that the lion's share of their audience was people who wanted a campaign, then they added a campaign at the last minute, and it pretty much showed. It wasn't a very good or very strong campaign, so that did hurt the game quite a lot. But again, it was a fairly close to D&D, especially the character creation. The character creation was awesome. You had literally the Dungeons and Dragons character creation at the time, which really allowed you to customize your character quite a bit. So you could choose the feats you wanted, you could choose the skills you wanted, and as you went up in level, again, you had a whole truckload of skills and feat that you could decide to take to customize your character. So that was character creation was the best part. I must have created 100 characters at the start of that game. But then for a bit there was a little bit of a drought. I think the last game I purchased was Icewind Dale 2. It took quite a long time for them to finally release a sequel to Icewind Dale. I'm not sure why. And it was a bit different than the first Icewind Dale, but I liked it anyway. It was essentially it was using the latest D&D rule set. So essentially, the first Icewind Dale was using the Advanced Dungeons and Dragons second edition, but in Icewind Dale they had started using some of the rules from third edition. So you could set it so that, for example, instead of backstab, there's an ability that the thieves or the rogues have that is called backstab. In third edition, they replaced it for something called sneak attack, which works differently than the backstab does. It has some similarities, but overall, it pretty much works differently. And so you could set the game to use sneak attack instead of backstab, and there's a few other distinction like that. So they started adding third edition rules to Icewind Dale, and when they made Icewind Dale 2, they made it completely with third edition rules. Or was it fourth edition? At some point, they started releasing a lot of new editions, so it can get mixed up and confusing a bit. But anyway, essentially they had the latest D&D rules in Icewind Dale 2, which made it quite different from the first one. And there was other things also that made it different, but it was still a very fun game. It was a fun again. It was a fun dungeon crawl. That's pretty much what Icewind Dale was, and Icewind Dale 2 was the same. It was at the core, it still was a fun dungeon crawl, and it was pretty close to the Dungeon and Dragon rule set. So if you were a fan of Dungeons and Dragons, games like Baldur's Gate 2, Icewind Dale 2, uh, which one I forget. If you like D&D, those games are really worth it. But then after more or less after Icewind Dale 2 or maybe Neverwinter, I'm not sure. There was a bit of a drought. There wasn't really any game that interested me. Of course, BioWare at some point were trying to make a console game instead. I guess they thought it was too difficult or too complicated to make PC games, and a lot of publishers did seem to think that the console games were easier to produce, so easier to make money off. But it sadly they didn't have the success they thought they would have with console games, so they pretty much had to go back to doing computer games. Like at some point they didn't want to do a Star Wars game anymore, and they ended up doing Star Wars: The Old Republic anyway. So there was a bit of a drought. There was a period where there wasn't really any game worth playing, which was a bit sad. And then at some point I bought a new laptop, and as luck would have it, about this at the same time as I bought my laptop, there was this new game called Dragon Age, which had been released. And holy crap! Essentially, I had been waiting for a new Baldur's Gate for quite some time, and that was as close to having a new Baldur's Gate as it could get. It pretty much had everything that was good in Baldur's Gate, and it was I would say it was better, but it really improved on a few aspects. And the NPCs were fun. You were just making a party of four players as opposed to one player and three NPC as opposed to one player and five NPCs. But it was a minor thing. And the NPCs were pretty fun. Alistair was a fun character to have. And Morrigan, holy crap! I had a big crush on Morrigan. Don't tell anyone. Uh, and also you had various origins. Essentially, it was called Dragon Age Origins, because at the start you can, depending on the character that you create, you have different ways to start the game. If you create, let's say, a human character, you start as a human nobleman. If you create an elf character, depending on the type of elf you choose, you'll start either as a slave in a city, or you start as an elf that lives in the wood, part of a clan or something. The same with the dwarf. Depending on the dwarf you chose, you had two distinction for the dwarf characters. And if you created a mage, you would start in the Tower of Sorcery and be trained to become a mage. And holy crap, that that's what I finally chose. Essentially, I tried like I tried the human character and then a human fighter for a bit just to see the origin. Then I tried the elf the elf that lived in the city, and then I said, okay, let's try human mage. So I tried a human mage, and I never stopped after that. That pretty much became the first character that I played through the game, and holy crap, was that fun! It early on it reminded me of there's this series called the Dragonlance in Dungeons and Dragons, and there is this fairly popular character called Raceland Major. And essentially in Dragonlance you have mages, a bunch of mages, and once you reach level 3, it's not really like that, but once you reach level 3, let's say you have to go to the Tower of High Sorcery to be trained as a mage, and then at some point you have a test to decide if they can release you and let you go into the world or not. So that essentially they have the test of the Tower of High Sorcery, and there was this really popular character called Graceland, which essentially was a mage, but he had a tragic backstory, and there was him and his twin Caramon, and they had a whole party of friends. And but when I started playing the mage in Dragon Age, holy crap! I felt like I was in the Tower of High Sorcery like Graceland, and there was twists and turns and surprises, and holy crap, the story was really good and really well done. If you guys never played Dragon Age Origin, I strongly suggest that you play it. It is a really fun game. Sadly, when they did Dragon Age 2, it wasn't quite as good as the first one because like, I'm not sure why they often do that. Essentially, with each Dragon Age game, they decided to, in short, reinvent the wheel. Uh, don't ask me why. I'll never understand why they do that. But essentially, with each game, they essentially scrapped everything and created a new game, or at least they tried to. They kept the lore, and even then, even the lore is not quite the same. Oh, I guess our inventory is full. Let's see if there's some crap we can get rid of. So with Dragon Age Origin, holy crap, that was essentially that was the spiritual successor to Baldur's Gate that some of us, that someone like me was waiting for. But Dragon Age 2, they completely changed everything. The combat was kind of fun. The combat was a lot more fast paced, but they fell into the trap of trying to reuse so much of their assets that you could see that it was I wouldn't say a cash grab, but they really tried to cut corners to try to cut down costs, and it really backfired on them. Essentially, they cut way too many corners. Every dungeon was pretty much reusing the same map. Every house was reusing the same map. They were reusing way too much the same assets. So it was a bit disappointing. They did backtrack a bit with Baldur's Gate with Dragon Age 3, but even then, they still made a completely different game than the previous two. I'm sorry, I'm a little distracted. And another game that was really fun was Fallout 3. Essentially, when I bought my PS3, one of the games I bought at the time was Fallout 3. I had fond memories of the first Fallout, of actually of the first two Fallout. So I tried Fallout 3, and holy crap, it was awesome. The story was as fun as with the first two stories, but then and the graphics were pretty good. Uh, I know that some people may look at the graphics now and say that they're not very good if they're used to much more recent graphics, but at the time, I really liked those graphics. I would marvel sometimes walking on the wasteland and looking, sometimes just looking at the sky, looking at the moon in the sky and all that good stuff. And the gameplay was pretty fun, but and the story was often the story should be the most important thing. And they had a good story, especially considering how you had choices. I remember when I decided to blow up the town. Holy crap! I never expected to to literally be able to nuke it. And it was pretty open ended. Although when I first bought it, I bought it twice for because I'm silly like that. The first time I bought it, essentially it was just the game without the DLCs. So at some point I bought it a bit later with what was the Game of the Year edition. And because the first time you buy it, the first version I bought, by the end of the game, your character sadly dies a little. But if you get the Game of the Year edition with all the DLCs, then at the end you die, but they somehow bring you back, and then you can keep on playing. So you can pretty much play for as long as you want. You can explore the map, explore every places on the map if you want to. And after Fallout 3, I tried a few other games. There's a few games I played with one of my friends, like Army of Two. We had a lot of fun playing that. It was fairly short games, but it was fun co-op games that we could play together. So that alone made it worth it. And then, of course, I discovered. Actually, I should probably backtrack a bit. In terms of MMO, in terms of MMOs, I had never really played MMOs for a long time. And then when I discovered the first MMO I really played was Dungeons and Dragon Online. Again, you can see how I'm a bit of a D&D nut. That seems wrong. Maybe not. So I tried Dungeons and Dragons Online. I created my. I don't think it was a drow. It was probably just an elf rogue at the time, and I had a lot of fun. I played that for quite a few months with some of my friends. We played for I don't know 6, 8, 10 months. I don't recall. We played essentially until for some reason at some point my friends decided to switch to playing Lord of the Rings Online instead. I guess they got tired of Dungeons and Dragons Online for reasons. We played Lord of the Rings Online at least for a good 6 months, and we played a lot. D&D, we would play DDO. We would play it just once in a while, like an hour or two a night. I don't know, once every 2 days or something like that. But with Lord of the Rings Online, I was between projects at the time. I think I had finished supervising one project, and I was waiting for the next project after. So I had like about 6 months downtime between the two projects. And so holy crap, we played Lord of the Rings Online almost full nonstop for about 6 months, and holy crap, was it fun! But then sadly, I had to go back to work, so I couldn't really play anymore after that. I played once in a while, but I couldn't keep up with my friends. And but playing by myself wasn't quite as fun. The grind, when you're 3, 4, 6 players, the grind isn't so bad. But when you're by yourself, it's not quite as good. So I pretty much not gave up, but I didn't have enough time to play Lord of the Rings Online. And the few times, oh, I guess. So I would only play it once in a while, and because I didn't have that much time to play it. So let's see. So you can see why I'm asking such a low price on many items, because essentially once you start selling stuff, sometimes you'll run out of room to be able to sell them. Sure, I could try to send some of the items that I want to sell to other characters for them to put on the broker, but it can get a bit annoying real quick. So ideally, you want items to sell as fast as you can put them up, because if you want to put something else for sale, you need for your things that are for sale right now to actually move quickly. That's important, especially if you're farming. Like if you're farming, you're going to gather a lot of collections, and you're going to want to sell your collections. But in order to be able to sell them as fast as you farm them, you have to ask a fairly low price. Usually, about half the price of the lowest bidder will do the trick. Although in some cases there are certain items that even at half the price, maybe you won't even sell them. So you go even lower than half. You'll go with maybe one third of the price or something. So let's go back to look for our friend. Oh, I'm probably in Gotham here. So after Lord of the Rings Online, uh, essentially I discovered this little game called DC Universe Online. And I remember at the time at the studio, people were talking about DC Universe Online, and holy crap, the buzz was not good. Word of mouth was really bad with that game. The things we were hearing about it, the problems they had producing the game, and also the lack of content was a pretty big issue with a lot of people. The consensus was pretty much that the game was fun for about a month, but after a month you pretty much ran out of things to do, and there wasn't enough content to keep you busy and or interested in the game. And also there were all the server issues that would pop up, so that it didn't sound good. And at the time, you had to purchase the game for I don't know, $60 or something. So spending $60 just to try out a game to see if maybe it would be good or bad or that didn't seem like a good idea. So I was like many others. I was hesitant to give it a try. So I did not. In the end, I did not try it out at that time. And then there was the whole Sony hack, or PSN hack, I should say, and then PSN was down for what, a month and a half, 2 months. So that didn't inspire confidence. So I did not buy DC Universe Online right away, sadly. But then a few months later, they decided to make the game free to play. So I thought, oh well, it's free to play. Uh, no reason not to try it then. So I did give it a try on PS3, and holy crap, I was hooked. It was I had a lot of fun. I was a bit disappointed at the character creation at first. I thought it was a little too limited, but I didn't quite understand how it worked and how you had essentially you had to farm to gather more styles to be able to customize your character. And I created I don't know, two, three, half a dozen characters before I finally found a character that I really enjoyed. Essentially, I started making the first character I made like was some sort of white Batman, if it makes any sense. And I don't mean in the sense of Moon Knight. I meant in the sense of I more or less created Batman, but I called it like a Batman of the North or something like that, Batman of the White North, or and essentially I tried to make well as close to Batman as we could at the time, and I more or less made the look the styles black, the styles white. Sorry about that. Well, I didn't really like it. Obviously, I was new, and so mastering martial arts was not that evident. But also visually, again, I was just starting, and I was a silly goose. I didn't like the Qatar. Like essentially, I had taken martial arts, figuring, oh yeah, Batman probably uses martial arts. And then when I saw the martial art weapon, I was like, holy crap, that I don't want to use that. And I was too silly to figure out at the time that, oh yeah, you can just remove the weapon from your hands and you're good to go. So I deleted my Batman character. Then I tried. I figured, okay, if I'm going to have a weapon, what weapon do I want to use? And at first I went with dual wield. So again, I essentially created a dual wield character with that was an acrobat, and not sure if I was using gadget or some other power, probably gadget. But essentially, I pretty much recreated what you could qualify as a rogue from D&D, and D, and somehow it felt unnatural. So I deleted my rogue, and essentially I had called him the Rune Wraith, which was a character I created at some point. So I recreated the Rune Wraith in DC Universe Online, but it was like playing a D&D rogue, but within the DC Universe Online, and at the time it felt wrong. Because I thought that hey, I'm playing in DC Universe Online. I'm not playing in D&D. I can play other games in D&D. So let's play something else. And so I probably tried two or three other characters, and then at some point I figured, okay, if I'm going to use a weapon, what weapon should I use? So I decided to go with dual pistols, and so essentially I created the Phantom. So I went with dual pistols, with Acrobat, and with Gadget, and that became my main character. It's the character that I played the first year I played this Universe Online. That is the character I played. Although in retrospect, I should have made something else, but at the time I didn't know any better. I didn't understand how the game worked. I didn't understand most of the mechanics. I didn't understand. There's too many things I didn't understand to realize that was essentially I had made a lot of bad choices. At first, I didn't really understand how to play Gadget properly, so that was a big problem. Although Gadget was working a bit different back then too, so that might have been part of the issue. And dual pistols, as I later found out, was not a really good weapon. It's pretty much one of the worst, weakest weapon in this universe online, and that's probably still true today. I don't think there ever was a time where dual pistols was uber powerful. guess we'll never find the weather wizard. So ideally, I should have created a flying character, and I should probably have created used another power, and blasters would probably have been a good choice. But I didn't know any better. It's only like a year later that essentially a bunch of friends decided to give DCUO a try. So I thought, oh, okay, they're going to start with new characters. So I made myself a new character so that we could all play together. And then we decided who would use what. Like essentially, I asked, okay, what role do you guys want to play? So one guy said I'll be the healer, another guy will say I'll be the tank, and so I decided, okay, I'll be the controller. What we no one was playing a controller, so I decided, okay, I'll play the controller, and that's when I created my Magneto character. Actually, no, that's not true. I'm a liar, liar, pants on fire. Essentially, I tried to create a Green Lantern character. And at first it was fine, all was good. It was fun to use the Green Lantern powers, it was fun to use the combos, so life was good. Until we started doing 4-player missions. I still remember the first time we played Smallville. Holy crap! Essentially, the power over time of the Green Lantern character as the time was either the boxing gloves or the light claws, and both essentially take your character into melee. And I was still much of a noob. I had no idea how to properly use clipping, and I had no idea that you could use your essentially as you cast your power over time, that you should clip it with a recharge so that you don't jump into melee. I was too ignorant about that. And even once I've learned about that, again I was still not that proficient, so it was a bit it was doable, but it was a bit annoying. So I decided to create a new character, and that's when I created my Magneto character. So essentially, I didn't have to go through to jump through hoops to cast power over time. I just had to press one button. The character would cast telekinesis, and the power over time was done. And holy crap, did I enjoy telekinesis! The way it grabbed cars and items and barrels and threw it at the enemies. Holy crap, that was a lot of fun. So essentially, I created my Magneto character, and I fell in love with it. And it pretty much became my main character at the time. It became the character I was playing the most. I was barely playing the Phantom after that. And it pretty much became my main character. And then at some point on the forum, essentially at some point we had, for some reason they changed the forums and we had some new forum. So I had to recreate a new account for the forum. So I decided to go with Magneto First Class as my forum name. And at the time, I was playing this Universe Online on PS3. But also, I had some friends who had decided to play. Well, I should backtrack a bit. When I started playing this Universe Online, I started on PS3. But also, I have a few friends who tried this Universe Online at the time, and they were playing on PC. So I created an account on PC as well to be able to play with them. Sadly, my PC wasn't very powerful, so it could run this Universe Online, but not very well. So so when I would play solo, I would play on PS3 with my Phantom character, and on PC I would pretty much only play with my friends. And essentially, this character, Saturn Knight, is the character I created to play with my friends on PC. And originally, I had created Saturn Knight as a ice tank. Essentially, I had a friend who had decided to create a character with fire powers. So I made a character with ice power, and we were like fire and ice. Silly combo, but anyway. But then later on, at some point, our group we didn't have a healer. Essentially, we had various roles, but no healer. So I figured, okay, we already have a tank. So I sacrificed myself, and I changed the powers of my Saturn Knight to electric instead of ice powers. But again, I would mostly play on PS3, and I would only play on PC once in a while. Well, that was a bit scary. Then at some point, when I bought a new PC, then it became the opposite. I was playing more on PC and not so much on PS3 because holy crap! At some point on PS3, the game was pretty much unplayable. The summer of Origin Crisis, holy crap! For various reasons, playing a game was not fun, and first there was a lot of players who would exclude you from groups for stupid reasons. There was the new PvP season where, in order to be able to gain marks to buy gear, you had to win a match. And they supposedly had this old system where you would never go into a long losing streak. You would everything would be on equal footing and yada yada. And essentially, holy crap! By day one, a lot of players spammed their replay badges and were full vengeance by the end of the day. And the matchmaking system was so poorly thought out that essentially you were in cash gear fighting. You were in cash gear fighting. Players in full vengeance constantly because the matchmaking was really poorly thought out. So sometimes you could go into a really long losing streak before you, and even worse, I was playing a controller, and at the time, almost everyone was playing Rage, like Rage powers. Was it Rage? I may be misremembering. Anyway, 9 times out of 10, I would end up facing a tank, and holy crap, it was a nightmare trying to get a win in PvP at the time. It was very difficult. Luckily, there was the Shadow what's it called, Shadowland map, so I was able to get the wins there because I could essentially I could crowd control and survive on that map. So I didn't need to kill the enemy player. I just needed to crowd control the enemy player and capture the objective and survive, which I could do pretty well with my Magneto. But holy crap, that summer was a nightmare. The missions for Origin Crisis were pretty much unplayable because people would kick you if you didn't have. Essentially, I didn't have expert mods. Like the first week, the first few days, Origin Crisis went live. I played. I started playing the solo missions to upgrade my gear a bit. I was full tier 4 at the time, but the gear you could get from the iconic missions was better than tier 4. So I farmed those for a bit to improve my gear. And I played a few 4-player missions to again try to upgrade my gear a bit. And then I played the 8-player missions. I think it was I played Paradox Wave, and it was a tough mission, but we managed to pull through. And then I didn't think much of it. I thought, okay, next week I'll try it again. And then the next week when I decided to try it again, sadly, as soon as I would get into the group, someone would inspect me. They would see that, oh, he has no expert mods, and they would kick me out. So essentially, the mistake I did at the time was that I did not use replay badges to replay Paradox Wave over and over and over to get either to get better gear or to hopefully get plans for expert mods. So sadly, at the time, no expert mods, no group would have you. They would kick you to the curb. And even with 4-player missions, I remember at first I thought, okay, if I can't play 8-player missions, I'll play 4-player missions. Nah, 4-player missions were as bad. And the few people who would not kick you, well, you would understand why pretty quick. Once you would start the mission, they would go all over the place. They wouldn't stick together because essentially you start the mission in Central City, where you have to fight a bunch of Paradox Reapers. But the Paradox Reapers were pretty tough for players of that level. So ideally we had to stick together. But players would go each in their own direction, and we would get destroyed pretty quick. So those missions were either you would get kicked from the group, or they would be unplayable with certain players. So I was pretty much stuck playing the solo missions during Origin Crisis. So it was not a good time. And then I decided to, okay, let's focus on PvP. And then PvP, holy crap, sometimes it would take 20, 30 matches before I finally got one win. And I was like, man, because again with PvP, the first day that PvP was released, okay, everyone had the first day, the first few hours, everyone had the same gear, so it was fine. So within half an hour, I had all my wins. I played all my matches. I won all my matches. So I thought, stupidly, okay, I'm good. I'll play again tomorrow. And then I had a few friends who wanted to try out the PvP. So I said, okay, I'll try it out with you guys. So it was like in the evening after everyone was back from work. So we went into PvP, and holy crap, everyone we were facing were in full vengeance already. Essentially, what happened is that there were players who used their replays the whole day, and a lot of essentially it took about 6 hours of using replays to be able to get the full vengeance gear. So we were constantly facing players in full vengeance gear, and already to begin with, my friends weren't too crazy about the idea of playing PvP, but I tried to convince them, no, no, everyone has the same gear now, so it'll be better. And then, sadly, we kept on going into matches and matches with players in full vengeance, and that pretty much was the last time my friends wanted to play a PvP. So I was pretty much stuck farming PvP by myself, and holy crap, it was a nightmare. Because the game kept on matching me against tanks, and and also it kept on matching me with players in full vengeance. So it was getting a win in PvP at the time was very frustrating. And I considered at the time giving up on the game. I was really considering uninstalling the darn thing and never playing it again. Luckily, at some point they decided to change things, but by then I was about halfway through my vengeance gear, so it didn't really matter. And holy crap, did the gear make a difference? Like as hard as it was to get a win uh, when I was in cash gear. Once I was in vengeance gear, holy crap! It was much easier to get a win. And even I remember in the open world, sometimes I would be fighting three, four, six players by myself. And I'd like to think that I'm the best player in the universe, but I know that it's just because I had better gear. So in full vengeance, you could take out at least half a dozen players by yourself. So imagine in PvP when one versus one, uh, the guy in cash gear had no chances. So that was a really frustrating period with DC Universe Online. But then I bought a new PC. And a new PC, and so for quite a while I played a lot more on PC than on PS3 because also PS3 had a truckload of rendering issues, like going into Paradox Wave. There's a lot of effects that I didn't even know were there. And I remember when I first played on PC, it was an eye opener. I saw effects that I'd never seen before. Like I remember some people would say, careful for the energy ball" or something like that, and I was like, "Well, what ball?" And then when I played on PC on my new PC, I understood what they meant. The same with the tells. Like there was this tell where when enemies, let's say, want to fake out, they'll block, and then there was these like yellow parentheses, these yellow brackets that would appear on each side of the enemy. I had never seen those on PS3. So when I played on PC, I said, "Oh, these are the tells that people are talking about." So it was an eye opener. And holy crap, was the game running smoothly. It was running smooth, smooth, smooth. So it was. So at the time, I pretty much switched. I was barely playing on PS3 because of all the issues, but also because of the PS3 itself, I guess. And on PC, the game was running so much smoother that it was a joy to play. And then about a year ago, I bought a PS4, and it pretty much became the reverse. Then I started playing more and more on PS4 and a bit less on PC. Also, sadly, as time as time goes by, uh, the game is it's not bad yet on PC, but it's not as smooth as it used to be. And there are some rendering issues here and there. Essentially, if with each new DLC that they add to the game, uh, there's uh, the performance on PC goes down a bit. It's not a big deal, but I remember a time when I would go into a map, like I would enter my base or I would go into the watchtower, and everything had been loaded the first millisecond I was there. And nowadays, it'll take a few seconds for the crafting table to spawn or for a few things like that. But at the time, when I bought when I started playing with my new PC, holy crap, everything was instantly loaded. There was no loading at all. It would take barely a few seconds. It was a pretty smooth experience. But with as they added new DLCs, it became a bit not quite as smooth. So when I bought my PS4, again with the PS4, I had the same experience. It was really smooth at first, but again as they started adding more and more DLCs to the game, then the game became a little less stable, sadly. And then at some point, I started making crazy videos. Essentially, there's Spittle, the creative director, at some point mentioned how some players had a hard time with the Brainiac mission for various reasons. Essentially, they couldn't go through the mini tutorial they had at some point to try to teach players how to block and how to block break and all that good stuff. Or there was even a place where players could not figure out how to activate their movement mode, so they were stuck in the room where you have to essentially climb the wall to be able to go through the opening at the top. So after seeing what Spittle mentioned, I thought, hey, let's make a video for new players. Let's make a video that possibly could help out new players and show them how to do the Brainiac mission, how to go through that mission. So I did that, and that's how this whole crazy thing started. That's how I started making videos, and it's a bit it's been a bit addictive. Essentially, I try to make a video whenever I get the chance, or whenever I get an idea, also for a video, or sometimes I'll just do a live stream for reasons. Lately, a few of you guys have been asking more and more live stream if possible. Well, we'll see what we can do. And it pretty much was a learning process. At first, I had no idea how to make a video. Luckily, it's pretty easy with the PS4, but still, I had to figure out how to do that, and I had to figure out also how to get the video on YouTube. When I first started, essentially, I would record. I couldn't record on YouTube at the time. I think I had to record on Twitch. So I started making my first videos on Twitch, but then at some point I noticed that the videos weren't on Twitch permanently. Supposedly there's something I could have done to leave them there permanently, but what I ended up doing instead is that I would record my video on Twitch, and then I would export it on YouTube. So that's what I started doing. But that meant essentially all my videos for quite a long time. All my videos were done live on the spot. There was no editing. There was nothing like that because that I couldn't do that. All I could really do was record live on Twitch and then transfer the video on YouTube. And then at some point I could I started we got the option to record live on YouTube. with the PS4. So I started doing that instead, and I started recording less and less on Twitch after that. And then at some point I figured out how to do some editing and how to be able to manage to do that. And first, how to capture some footage so that I could edit it, and then using some various editing tools to edit some of my videos. So you'll see some of my more recent videos have been heavily edited. That's because essentially I figured out how to either capture videos on YouTube on PC, or I would record on PS4, but not a live recording, just like a 15-minute recording, and then I would export that on my PC, and then on my PC I would do some editing. So essentially, if there's something short, I can just record a quick 15-minute video on PS4, and then export that on PC and then edit that. Sometimes I'll do 2, 3, 4 15-minute video if it's something that needs to be longer. Or sometimes I'll just record it live on PS4 as I used to do. Then I'll download it from YouTube, and then I'll edit that. But that's a rare thing, because the problem is that if I put a video on YouTube, and if I decide, oh crap, I forgot, let's say I forgot to edit this part. If I download it from YouTube, then I have to edit it, then I have to re-upload it on YouTube, and I cannot upload it on top of the video that was there. Essentially, I have to delete the video that was there, and I have essentially to create a new video. There's no way to just change the video itself. Like if I could just say, okay, let's remove the video and let's just put this one instead, in order to be able to keep all the information that's already there, and also the amount of views that the video got so far. It's not really an option. Essentially, I literally have to delete the video and then put in the new one. So I don't do that all that much. Once in a while I'll do that, but it's a once in a while thing. At some point I started adding an intro to certain videos, uh, but I've been doing that less and less. Essentially, if I look at the data, I would guess that people didn't really like it so much. And I can understand. It drives me a bit crazy when I watch a 3-minute video and there's like an intro of like 1 minute. I'm like, man, unless the intro is really good, I don't like that very much. So at some point I tried to do, I don't know, I think it was a 13-second intro, and then I tried to make it 10 seconds, and then I tried to make it 5 seconds. But then at some point I gave up on the idea of having an introduction at all, and I just started the video right off the bat. Although if you guys have any suggestions, I'd be happy to hear what you have. To hear some of your suggestions. Do you like it when I put an intro, or do you prefer no intro at all? Do you like some longer videos, some shorter videos? Like sometimes people will send me comments. Like there's this guy earlier today who suggested that my videos are too long. I should just do short videos. And but some of you guys are asking the opposite. So if you guys could leave in the comment section down below what you prefer. Do you prefer long videos, short videos? And if there's any content that you guys want to see, feel free to ask about it. So I guess that's been a pretty long one. I guess I had a lot to say. So that's pretty much it for this vlog, guys. So thanks for your support, guys. We're almost at 400 subscribers. Last I checked, we were at 387. So I'd like to thank you very much for your support, guys. It means a lot to me. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So thanks a lot, guys. Thanks for those of you who have been liking those videos. Thanks for those of you who have been sharing those videos. It is much appreciated. It means a lot to me. Thank you very much, guys. So that's pretty much it for now, guys. So thanks for watching, and hopefully I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.